Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
On May the 21st, we turn to 1 Samuel 24 and 25, as well as we finish John today, or at least look at the last chapter of John. And so here we have a tale of two extraordinary women. 1 Samuel chapter 25 is going to tell the story of Abigail. And of course, in John, we're going to see this instance of Mary and encountering the risen Lord after the resurrection. But let's look at this in 1 Samuel chapter 25 today first. This is David, of course. He's still fleeing from Saul. Look at verse 2. Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men in front of the wild goats' rocks. And then, of course, Saul goes in to relieve himself. David is in this tent hiding. And then in verse 4, David arose, stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe, and afterwards David's heart struck him, because he had cut off a corner of Saul's robe. He said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed." Now, notice there the heart of David. This is why David is a man after God's own heart, because he, to Saul, even though Saul is pursuing him, David, instead of seeking vengeance, instead of seeking his own way, he instead chooses to show steadfast love, even when it was inappropriate for David to show steadfast love in the human scheme of things. But David would not raise his hand against his anointed, and he even felt guilty that he cut off a piece of the garment of the king's robe. And so the Lord pressed upon my heart to encourage you today to seek a heart that seeks the Lord. In other words, to cultivate within your heart this sensitivity to the Lord, His Spirit, and His direction. And you say, well, how do I do that? Well, one of the ways that you do that is just what you're doing right now. You're reading the Bible. You're being confronted through God's revelation. And in that confrontation, as we have a word that's come to us, we are conformed into the image of God, and we are comforted by that conforming process. But look at chapter 25. Samuel died. Samuel died. And then here we're going to have a picture of Nabal, the worthless, and Abigail, the beautiful. And notice this. This is, Abigail is presented as one who is beautiful inside and out. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife, Abigail. The woman was discerning and beautiful. She is inside. She is beautiful both inside and out. And don't miss that. I don't want to just glance over that. It's an important historical marker for us. The narrative is going to shift here. Look at chapter 25 again, verse 1. Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him in the house at Ramah. Look at verse 23. When Abigail saw David, she hurried, got down from the donkey, fell before David her face, and bowed on the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "On me alone, my Lord, be the guilt. Please let your servant speak in your ears and hear the word of your servant. Let not my Lord regard this worthless fellow Nabal, for as his name is, so he is." Nabal, which, by the way, there's a little footnote. Nabal means fool. Fool is his name, and folly is with him. But I am your servant. Your servant, did not see the young men and my Lord whom you sent. Now look at verse 28. Please forgive the trespass of your servant, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house. That's repeating the promise. Because my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you so long as you live. Now look at verse 33. Blessed be your discretion. Blessed be you. You have kept me this day from blood guilt and from working salvation for my own hand. Now, how does the Lord work out salvation? Well, look at verse 37. In the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. When David heard Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord who has avenged the insult I received at the hand of Nabal and has kept back his servant from wrongdoing. The Lord has returned the evil of Nabal on his own head." Now look at verse 42. Abigail and her 5 young women attended her. She followed the messengers of David and became his wife. Now, very quickly, we have to turn over to our reading in John 20. I want you to see this. Mary stood weeping. Here's this other extraordinary woman in verse 11. Mary stood weeping outside the tomb, and she wept and stooped to look into the tomb. She saw 2 angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, and on the head of one and the feet. Then they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They've taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they've laid him." Having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Who are you seeking?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Don't cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go to my brothers and say to them, I'm ascending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and to your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," and that he had said these things to her. Now let's do a little Hebrew lesson today. Remember, we're looking at Psalm 119. Let's go over the alphabet again. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zion, Hate, Tate, Yod, Kaf, and today we have Lamed. And look at verse 93, 94, 95, 96, and we'll close here. "I will never forget your precepts, for by them you have given me life. I am yours, save me, for I have sought your precepts. The wicked lie in wait to destroy me, but I consider your testimonies. I have seen a limit to all perfection, but your commandment is exceedingly broad." Yes, indeed, Proverbs is true. After encountering Nabal and Saul and David, and here the plans of the Pharisees trying to stop the resurrected Lord, listen, the heart of a man plans his steps. The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Today, rest assured, in all of your plans, it's the Lord who establishes your steps.